All right, everybody. Welcome to the semifinal breakdown of Duke versus Maryland. Jamie Monroe here, and I got Chris Fifes, the head coach of the University of Vermont, coming off a great season, and really excited to have you on board here, Chris, to drop some knowledge on us, to talk about what's going on in these games. Our group of high school coaches are like as committed of coaches as there is out there, and they just want to learn. And what we're finding is, I did a ton of webinars and presentations, but this summer what we're going to spend our time doing is watching game film, looking at stuff, and then trying to relate it back to all the presentations so that we can learn in a little bit of a different way. Welcome, and this is what we're up to.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jamie. I'm excited to be here. This is a really cool platform, and this is exciting, some exciting lacrosse to break down.
Yeah, man. So give us a quick update. I think I sent you an email today that we got Dave Miller in the coaches program, a proud catamount from the 80s vintage. But how are you feeling about the state of the program?
Feeling great. I think we made a lot of positive strides this year. Obviously, every year is different. Every team is different. And so we got to get back to the drawing board this year and continue to work and improve and bring some of these young guys along with some big losses like Ian McKay and James Leary on defense. But I think culturally we made some big strides, and we're in a great spot to continue to improve and achieve our goals. James
Leary was one of our all-time greatest 3D guys.
He's a stud, man. I'm really bummed to lose him, especially because I coach the defense, but just on a day-to-day basis, his leadership, his character, that kid he's a one of a kind. So Hopefully he does a good job working for 3D.
He's down there in 3D Georgia with Hammer.
He is. It was funny. The thing he's most excited about going down there is learning the box game and working in you guys' kind of box program too. So, the Canadians on our team are giving him a hard time right now.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we're going to get this going, but before we start, Chris, what I wanted to ask you was, and we can use this a couple clips in the beginning, but before we get started, I'm really curious to know, what is your philosophy on how you break down games? Do you have a methodology behind what you're going to do when you're breaking down a game, both from a self-scout perspective and then from an opponent scout perspective? And maybe you can share that a little bit before we get started. And if you want me to roll some footage, I could do that. But if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be awesome.
And do you just mean on a week-to-week basis preparing for the next opponent?
Yeah, or sort of like, looking at yourself. So either sort of self-scout or opponent scout. But what's your methodology for like your process? I think a lot of high school coaches like watch film, but I'm not sure if they if they have a rhyme or reason for how they're doing it and what they're looking for, what they're looking at, and how they go about breaking down the film. So let's talk about opponents.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing is, I like to go through it multiple times, and so I don't try to bite off more than I can chew in the first go round. I like to really cut the game up into segments and focus on one side of the field and watch all the clips all the way through. And in that process of going through, I like to kind of do the big general stuff. What type of sets they're running, what their midfield lines are, maybe what they do out of timeouts, what they do man up, do they do anything off the inline, what's their zone offense, all of those big things, and just kind of take notes on that and continue to organize it as I go through to see if I can recognize any patterns. The next time that I go through the film, I like to kind of break down the amount of runs maybe a certain line has throughout a game, what type of offense that particular line likes to run, what are the hands of that particular line, who are the pole matchups for that particular line, things like that, get a little bit more specific. And then the third go around, I really like to see what the other team is doing against them defensively and where maybe they're having success or where they're having breakdowns. Now, it can be a little misleading because there's so much that happens in the flow of the game with time of possession and transition and things that maybe you don't see off ball if you watch just the clips of your, say, the offense you're going to defend. But if you're looking at it in a vacuum, you can have that information to start with to kind of start to formulate your game plan and then adjust it from there. So that's kind of like my baseline for breaking down the opponent for that week.
That's really cool. So it's sort of 3 go-throughs.
I'd say 3 is pretty average. And then if you want to see, once you have that information, maybe the 4th time is you watch the game in its entirety. You watch the entire flow of the game and see maybe why they did go to zone in that particular time, or why maybe they decided to adjust. Why are they sliding quicker to so-and-so? Or why did this team maybe change their midfield lines? Maybe it wasn't a deliberate thing to create more scoring punch. Maybe it was there was an injury on the other side of the ball that you didn't see. So you don't necessarily want to overthink it, but you want to see what the entire flow of the game is doing.
One of the things that I think is so important that I would try to do, and it takes a lot of concentration to do this over a long period of time, but is to, you watch a possession or even like a clip within a possession, and then, stop it and look and see where everybody is, you know what I mean? And what are they exactly doing? And then roll it. And especially when it's your own guys, where you got to go through and like, yes, check. Where is everybody right now? And then you can sort of move on. But how much do you do things like that where you really stop and look at it and sort of make a conscious check to look at everybody?
It's funny that you say that, because this platform that we're working with in particular right now would not be what I use. I use sports code, Huddle sports code, which allows me to rewind 1,000,000 times and slow-mo 1,000,000 times and stop. I stop and go a ton. It would drive us crazy if we were doing this on a webinar, the amount of rewinding and fast forwarding and things that I do. So I'm with you. I really think spacing, spacing and off-ball positioning and all of those type of things, you can really look at in detail if you stop it for those particular clips.
I've actually got a good little system here where I can roll it with my 2 fingers.
Oh, okay.
And not have to use a button. For those people that have a Mac, if you go into your Finder and you have a file, if you just press the space bar, it opens up the whole file. And when you have it that way, you can fast forward and rewind and play and just use your 2 fingers. So it's pretty good.
That is cool.
Last question, Chris, how would you say it differs with, when Jake's breaking down the offense, how do you guys go about it on the offensive side of a scout? Is it different, same, similar?
Pretty similar. With offense, he breaks it down possession to possession a lot of times, takes a very organized approach to, possession to possession. What, for self-scout purposes specifically, breaking down possession to possession, plus minus, that type of things with our guys. But when preparing for an opponent, I know that he goes through it with a fine-tooth comb as well to see where they're sliding from, how they're recovering, what they like to do in terms of, with their polls. Do they try to maintain matchups? Do they not worry about matchups off ball, those type of things. And then that way he can start to formulate how he wants to manipulate their defense. If they're a quick sliding team or a slow sliding team, that can dictate how they exchange the ball, and how we want to rotate attack wise or how we want to rotate midfield wise. So maybe seeing some tendencies, you gotta watch it multiple times to get that. So I'd say it's a pretty similar approach.
Yeah. And the key is you got to watch it a lot of times. And I mean, sometimes you'll probably watch a clip so many times that, you can recite everything that's happened over the course of a lot of games.
Sometimes you watch these games, a single game in detail so many times, you feel like you don't need to watch all their games because their personnel so well. It got exposed so well in one particular game that you don't need to see maybe another blowout game or another bad weather game. You can kind of just push those to the side and focus on the meat.
Right. And then I know I did that a few times, and then all of a sudden they got out of some fake flip play on man up, and I was like, darn it, I didn't see that. And next thing you know, you're like, now I just got to go back and make sure I don't skip anything because there might be that little play.
That's right. That's true.
Now, I know I said last question last time, but another one came up. But when you're thinking about scouting on an individual personnel basis, what are the checklists of things that you're kind of looking at that way?
So on the defensive side of the ball, I really, hands are huge for me. Who they like to initiate from, who are the guys that are the initiators, what hand are they? That can really dictate who we like to poll, who we want to put our LSM on, or if we need to double poll if they're a midfield driven team. And then obviously hands are big because that can dictate how quick or how slow we slide. Speed is a big thing, ability to, exchange the ball in a certain way. Does this guy have to roll away, or can he be a pull pass guy? That may affect how we slide, things like that. And then just looking at the amount of shots guys take, the amount of touches guys get, that can also dictate, who their main guys are. In terms of, it's not always the guys that score the most goals that are the guys you got to be worried about, but the guys that are kind of the people that stir the drink, and who are the guys that you want to shut down offensively. So it's almost like looking at the most impactful guys within their offense and then figuring out a way to neutralize them with your team scheme.
You think about like Bill Belichick, and they're always like, he always takes away what you want to do, and it sounds so cool. And then, and then all of a sudden you are, the head coach of the University of Vermont or at Denver or whatever. And it's not that easy, but how do you got to go about trying to do those things? Like from a perspective of shut-offs, early slides, out, forcing people, and do you really worry about taking away one or two things, or do you just try to play overall, hey, these are the 5 or 6 things we really need to do here?
I'm a really simple guy. I don't think that, more is necessarily better. I think focusing on a couple, 2 to 3 major things. So I do think it is every week. It is about neutralizing those 1 or 2 major components of an offense. And in our sport specifically, I think that, you really just got to keep it simple for your defense so that the team scheme can be very confident with what they're doing. I think that's a big piece, confidence piece of your defense. Understanding leads to a better, consistent product. But I also think on a week-to-week basis, and if you want to win at a very, high level or a championship level, you have to be able to adjust your base scheme around neutralizing 1 or 2 major things. And if you can do that and you have a good goalie, you can be very successful. If you don't have a good goalie, then maybe you do need to be more specific with what you're trying to do game plan wise as a team scheme. But we try to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, cool. Awesome stuff. Well, let's roll this film and start taking a look. So this is the beginning of, we have this cut up into a bunch of different possessions. We probably won't get through the whole game because it's about a 40-minute video. And we're going to spend a lot of time watching this. But let's kind of get it going. And maybe you just comment and just talk about, I'll chime in, but talk about anything you see or anything that it's worth noting.
Sure. I think one thing that both of these teams do a nice job of, specifically Duke too, is they do a lot of probing here in early offense as they set up their kind of long dodge or their initiation as they get into their set, and they try to keep your defense, drag your defense, horizontally and vertically, and drag you out of position. Maybe taking a close defenseman above goal line or taking a short stick below goal line. As they're trying to organize their defense, if you can make their head spin and make them turn around, then disorientate them, or however you say that, I think it will help your, give you a better chance. This particular, they're obviously trying to take away a strong hand of this young man, and they try to hedge to his offhand, which allowed him to get back underneath and get a strong-handed shot. But, if you look at it, he never really makes contact with the Dodger, which allows him that extra space to get underneath. And with an athlete of that caliber, Nakai Montgomery, you have to get a piece of him if you're going to force him this much.
Or you're going to have to go really early.
Really early.
Right?
I agree with you. He tries to hedge, and it's just they gave him too much space. They didn't respect him quite enough. And that's understandable for a young guy, but he's a fantastic athlete, and you got to have a better point of contact than that.
Some would say, on the high wing dodges, that you have a tendency to, pick up a little bit more like this, and then you'll get a better chunk of them, or you're going to have this guy getting ready to go, and it's going to be a no question, especially because number 2 is a freshman offensive first line midfielder. So it's from a sort of a matchup perspective, they probably are, like, guys, that was Bubba on defense. We got to go.
Absolutely. And it's tough with a team like Duke. They have so many weapons that you got to pick your poison on who you're trying to slide early off of. And so if you want to delay that a little bit, it's got to start with the tip of the spear. It's got to start with your short sticks, really delaying that slide, slowing people down to buy you more time. One thing I look a lot at is when you're looking at these other offenses is what type of sets are they running? Are they running a 2-man crease set or a single crease set? That can also kind of dictate where you slide from and how you recover. Duke's a big 13 team, as you can see right now, kind of getting into a 1-3-2. Try to go for a backdoor there. Eventually he gets the ball. And what you're going to see here, obviously, is a little off-ball exchange from the Duke guys. 2 guys fade out and 1 guy comes in. The attack rotates from the backside there. And that, depending on how a team, if they want to maintain matchups or if they want to stay home and switch matchups, that can be a little bit confusing. And through that process of that exchange, Duke was able to capitalize on Maryland's kind of maybe ball watching off ball. And they do a great job, Duke does, of sneaking the pipes and playing with their attack. And they're able to skip it down to a pipe.
They really do a great job on that. Quick point here. Maryland was like trying to make it hard. A lot of teams do this. They try to make it hard for you to easily move the ball to a matchup. And, a lot of times players are a little hesitant to throw the ball to somebody that's getting a little bit of pressure. And the one point I want to make to a great coaching point is that when you have a situation like this and you recognize, first of all, there's no pressure on the feeder. So if there was pressure with a pole, it makes it a lot harder to do what I'm about to suggest. But if this guy is not looking, then you don't have to worry about it. You just throw it in there, and if he is looking, now you start faking and let the guy make some backdoor cuts. And it's just a quick read for any feeder that when the off-ball defender is not looking at the ball, then you can throw it in there and not have to worry about it being picked. And if he is looking, then that's when the cutter does some backdoor cuts and you fake passes and you'll have what you want.
That's a fantastic point, Jamie. I think the other thing is, he could probably do a better job of making contact and V-cutting rather than kind of staying in a straight line when the guy's not looking at the ball.
No doubt. Now, this is interesting, Chris, because, Duke usually pops their crease. You know what I mean? Like usually this guy goes down here and this guy will follow. And in this case, they changed that up, which is not that significant because a lot of people do that, but Duke doesn't do that often. And it really kind of screwed up Maryland's rotations here a little bit. All of a sudden, that's why that sneak got so open. These 2 guys are both recovering to the same person because there's nobody on the crease anymore.
You know what? I think if you watch Duke is they keep things very simple and they don't over, micromanage what they do offensively. And I think it was initially almost supposed to be kind of a follow and a float on the backside, but the top side midi got a little confused. And they still did kind of what we call, a thumbs down or a backside rotation from the attack and cut in. But what it did do is still allow them it gave them a lot of space to dodge and it stretched out their slides and recoveries. So it still managed to work. The spacing was solid.
Yeah.
But with him not following, he could have followed a little more. He might have been able to exchange that ball and throw the one more a little quicker.
Yep. Now, it's funny, Chris, because, you refer to, and I always did too, of Duke's offense as being a 1-3-2. But when I started studying it more, and I think it starts as a 1-3-2, but it really becomes a 1-4-1. We'll look at that later. But they kind of end up with like 3 middies on the perimeter and 2 attackmen, high, low, up, high back, high ball side, backside low, and a guy at X. And it's kind of interesting. We'll turn our attention here to Maryland.
I agree with you. Kind of changing from a single crease to a double crease can be confusing for a defense. And Maryland does a similar thing. They'll run kind of a 23 set, which you saw there with a pick on the pole with a short stick. But they'll bring another guy into the crease and then they'll end up vacating as well. So they kind of go back and forth, but it creates a lot of space. And as you saw there with Duke trying to press out on Jake, or not Jake or Jesse, I coach with Jake, but press out on Jared Bernhardt there. It allowed a nice lane for 23 to get underneath, and they don't slide to their poles a whole lot. Duke does not. So that created a one-on-one matchup, and it was basically a race to the pipe.
Really interesting play here. So they're like trying to not let Connor Kelly get it with a shorty. So it's pretty typical. Both sides of the ball are trying to make it difficult to get a matchup you want, keep a pull on the ball. But the Dodger here, does such a nice job of subtly faking and cutting. He looks off his dodge, and like, listen, these are some of the players in the country starting on defense in blue, and yet a deceptive look up the field and then quick split gets an amazing step on them, especially while they're pressing out on Bernhardt. So it just goes to show you, to me, Chris, the biggest opportunity for most players and teams is in deception and faking, because people don't do it, and when you do it, almost always works.
I agree with you. It's the subtle stuff. It's not the big fakes and the extended box fakes. It's the subtle stuff. It's the look offs. It's the butt in pumps to really just shift a guy one way and to get that extra step without having to exert a ton of energy.
You commented earlier probing. I mean, Duke and Maryland, they do that so well. And I recall like watching your guys' championship run from 2 years ago, and the Carolina 2016 team was as good at probing an early offense as anybody. And it's such an important, but takes such discipline to do, don't you think?
It really does. It really does. Being able to probe and understand what a high percentage opportunity is versus, one that the risk reward is just not there and you can't afford to turn the ball back over here. So here we have Duke with a double crease set, kind of a 14 pop look, if you will. And what that does is that puts that ball side crease defender in a position where he has to decide if he's going to hedge or slide. And if he does hedge, is he going to recover to the throwback? Now here we have a pull pass out of Nakai Montgomery, and the top center fill guy at number 28, as you see, he believes that he's going to that hard follow or that hard pop, as well as the crease hedge guy. So there's a little confusion, and they send two to the ball, which creates an overload scenario for a throwback and a one more. So you got to be clear on what your rules are in terms of if there's a hard follow or a pop or a throwback, how do you recover to those, and making sure you guys know the general rules, as you'll see here.
What's your rule on that?
It just depends. In this particular case, Nakai threw what we call a pull pass, and that's a very quick release pass, which doesn't buy you much time to rotate all the way from the backside or to even hedge and recover. So I'll usually, to the quick pull passes, I'll usually send 28 and just have that crease hedge guy bump back through the crease, which would, cover
automatic
picks up top. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different triggers, and that can vary from game to game. So, but you got to have a base rule.
It also has to do a little bit with how low it's happening. I mean, if it's happening up here, you can probably get back to it. But as soon as the follow guy is actually in a dangerous position, I think, you pretty much just got to rotate to it.
I agree wholeheartedly. And
he's right on that borderline, because it's not that low, but it's not high, So that's what the offense do, is they play right in that gray area that makes it hard for you to make decisions.
And the thing that Duke does so well is they keep their offense very simple and the rules very simple. But what they do is they change up where they attack you from, how they, who they attack with, and they change up little subtleties like how they rotate just to confuse you. So it's all the same offense, but these little minor adjustments may say flatten your defense out or stretch your defense out. And that opens up what they're so good at, which is their passing lanes and their skills.
So let's just hit somebody.
It gets deflected. If he one-mores that down to the pipe, you got a 2-on-1 now. You've created 4 Maryland defensemen against 3 Duke guys, as you can see, and you have 66 and this guy down on the pipe here, 2-on-1. All 66 needs to do is maybe throw a little pump fake just to draw that defender up to him, and then one more to the pipe. Instead, he settles for what is a pretty high percentage shot as well, middle of the field from about 13 yards. But Maryland does a great job of contesting.
One of the things that I've been talking, I used to talk a lot about, on defense, we always talk about head on a swivel, see your ball on the man, look away, stuff like that. This is the perfect example of, on offense, this needs to be taught as well, because the bottom line is that right now 66 should be looking to his left to see who's going to play him and whether he's got a one more or what, and how to position himself so that he can hitch once and shoot around a screen. Because when you hit people with a shot, it's usually because you were rushed a little bit, and it's because you didn't position yourself precisely to be able to hitch once and find that screen, or in this case, make the one more play. But looking up without the ball is a skill that's as teachable and fundamental as looking up when you're off the ball on defense, I think.
And I think a subtle skill cue that, if it's important to you as a defensive coach is, maybe shot contesting, and how can you become a better shot contesting team? Well, you have to practice it, the intricacies or just the little details of how you want to contest shots, but maybe having players that have some length, recruiting players with some length, or putting guys with length down on close so that they can get out and close out on some of those shots.
Put a little pressure on X back there, aren't they?
They sure are. They're looking like they're just pressing Jared Bernhardt, who's the distributor of their offense, the main guy that stirs the drink. So what they've created is a 5-on-5 above the cage with a 2-man crease set. So if they're able to draw a slide and maybe throw back to a pop guy, they're going to have some more space to work with, which is the downside of a shut or a press.
And what do you do when that happens? What do you think a good counter? A lot of other high school coaches on this call are going to be, going to have that guy that's going to get pressed. Do you try to start him on the crease and make your guy be the hot guy and roll him off and stuff?
I think there's a couple different options. I think you're right, Jamie, that putting a guy on the crease and maybe popping him off behind a dodge, or putting his shut guy, the guy who's pressing him, in position to be the slider, will allow him to, open up for a pop scenario, or maybe create a no slide scenario because the guy's so preoccupied with shutting, he just forgets to slide. I think that's a very simple adjustment. So I think that's easy. I think having him be a picker, and understanding, is this a team that maybe jumps picks or doesn't jump picks? And if they don't, utilizing that picker to create some separation, I think that's a good solution. And then, even what you may see Maryland doing, which, playing against other teams in our conference, like in Albany and a Connor Fields that gets a lot of shuts, is putting him behind the cage to create more space above and having a set that operates more above goal line. But having him pick the ball off the end line and back up shots and getting him the ball in his stick that way. Not becoming obsessed with it, learning how to play out of it, but also, using it to your advantage.
No doubt. Chris, I've talked to you a fair amount over the last year about the idea of the double threat position, and watch Kelly here get into right there into his double threat position. And he, even when he catches it a lot, like I used to in the old, year more before I started thinking about the double threat, I would have said be winding up here, but this position is such a threat for dodging that you can see what it's doing to these defenders. He's in a dodging posture. And actually, he could have roped the ball. A box player probably would have done that. This guy would have had a free shot with his left hand right here. But it just puts you in this position that you can dodge from and be a dodging posture, but you can feed from. And then he's not even far from shooting range anyways, So just an interesting little concept that I know you and I have chatted about a lot.
Absolutely, Jamie. And I think what you talked about, the subtlety of fakes and faking, they have a first-team All-American on a short stick matchup inside of 15 yards. And by getting into that double threat position, everyone else, if you saw, became really alert as to who's going to be the slider. I may need to prepare myself to slide really quickly. And then you can create some more off-ball spacing, like you said, and maybe just one more to Rotan. So if you see, the big righty down there, that defenseman for Duke, ball side to his right. Yeah, he's looking like he might have to slide really quickly, which creates that coming off the drift, coming off that adjacent. But the double threat created that whole thing.
Well, Yale took advantage of this very situation, and Yale took advantage of Duke with their help towards the middle when the ball was in the middle, and they got several goals from players right in this vicinity with a guy kind of helping. Not the identical scenario because it was more of a mirror, but it was kind of the same. So, but in any case, I love that. I actually developed this really cool shooting drill out of the double threat that I'll have to show you guys. I'll have it spliced in, but there's some really cool. In fact, you guys want to see that? I can show it to you right now. You want to check out a really cool shooting drill out of double threat?
That'd be great.
Let's check it out. So here's the double threat to triple threat right here. You're in a double threat posture, and you jump back into your triple threat to shoot it. when I watch Austin's stats, he's always in this dodging posture as he's manipulating, just the way Connor Kelly was. And he feeds from it and he shoots from it all day. And by subtly jumping to the side, either side, you can put yourself in a position where you can move the goalie or not. So you saw there, I'm missing my shot, unfortunately. But you see how I jumped over and I gained a little bit of angle that way? And then the next time, I'm going to gain a little bit of angle jumping the other direction and be able to have a little bit of net to shoot at. And I really believe that this technique, Chris, is one of the best ways to learn how to be a deceptive shooter. And I believe it's an amazing way to be able to fake defenders that are on you.
I agree. I think it is. It's a great way to manipulate, from a power position. So you can withstand checks and things like that. It's not very threatening, but it can also give you a couple of different options and the goalie, and it draws a lot of eyes and a lot of attention.
Well, especially because, it's like so difficult to teach deceptive shooting. I think it's one of the hardest things to do. In fact, I'm not even sure you can teach deceptive shooting. I kind of feel like it's something more like has to be learned. But that little environment, for some reason, Chris, try it out sometime. Show Jake and let him mess around with it. For some reason, it allows you to learn how to lean right. I'm a lefty, so I lean right and shoot left, or I hold them up and pull it. But it's interesting stuff. So we'll get back to the regularly scheduled program here. Jared Bernhardt sure is a fun player to watch, isn't he?
He sure is. Right there, you have a big to big behind the cage, Jared. And, you can see that Duke trusts their poles. They're not sliding to their poles. And Jared recognizes they're not really set up in any type of zone. They don't really have their slide package above set up. So he's taking advantage and trying to attack an early offense while they still, as you see, they have a long stick midi on the crease. This is early offense. And Jared, who's been getting shut most of the game, is able to touch the ball as they kind of get their guys on. And unfortunately, the goalie makes a nice save, but he's able to get into this defender's body, get to the island, get to his spot, get his hands out in front, and put a nice shot on cage. So that's that early offensive balance of, plus minus. Is this a possession where we need to slow it down, or is this a possession where maybe we can be opportunistic and get an easy one? And that's just high-level lacrosse. Duke just makes a nice save.
You guys do much in early offense, Chris?
We don't right now. We have some very simple things, that are in place to take advantage of maybe defenders not communicating in early offense through maybe some picking and some weave and things like that. But for us, we like the 6-on-6 battle. We like the half field game. That's just plays to our strengths. We're not like a Duke or a Maryland right now where we have an overwhelming amount of athleticism. But we do have some skill, and we do have some toughness and some guys that have played at the box game. So we try to play to their strengths. So, yeah, there's your pop. Again, you saw Duke kind of attack from the wing and create a pop scenario to create a perimeter overload. Right now it's kind of like a 23 set where they just pop the crease, they cut the backside and rotate. So a little bit of a Syracuse look, if you will, where they kind of flatten out the ball side attackman, sneak the backside pipe, and they isolate that defenseman of, hey, are we going to slide from the pipe or are we going to slide from the crease? And when they pop the crease, that kind of occupies the defenseman a little bit. He's recovering to the crease there as they rotate out to the pop. And then that confuses the slide package. So 42's got a 2-on-1. If they throw ahead and press through the backside pipe, they might be able to win a foot race to the island.
It's so funny how many different sets these things really are. When I was referencing earlier that I think a lot of things have become a 1-4 is that in a 1-4 you've got a backside low guy, a ball side high guy, an X guy, a dodge, afloat, and then there's a follow over here somewhere, which is the exact same scenario you're in a Syracuse motion or almost any offense. I actually think almost all offenses become a version of a 1-4 a lot of the time.
I mean, you said it. Here's one where they go from a 23 essentially into a 1-4-1. You know, and then what they did was Maryland took the conservative route rather than get into that chase scenario and that foot race to the island. They recognized that they had an isolated defender on the pipe, and they went for the conservative route, which was stay above the cage, which can create hangups. And so as soon as they got hung up, Maryland goes into what we call a flush. The goalie goes to a strong side, the defenseman goes the other side, and they try to flush him out of it. Well, he actually goes opposite. So they have a different version of the flush, but either way, now they're in a precarious situation. If they can get somebody open off ball and get his hands free, usually they attack the goalie side. Gooderding attacks his strong hand and looks for off ball guys that are open off ball. But that conservative approach can get you some hang-ups and potentially some easy feeds, some easy goals.
What's interesting about this, Chris, is that usually teams aren't so quick to flush it, and it actually, I think, caught Gooderding off by surprise a little bit because they just all of a sudden they're like immediately there, and it was like Duke was still kind of, you know, guys aren't even looking yet, they're not ready, so it's pretty interesting.
I think maybe they recognized, or maybe on film, something like, hey, Gooderding always likes to attack to his left side on hang-ups, or he just feels more comfortable. Let's put our strong right-handed dodger, our strong right-handed defenseman on his strong hand and make him attack to his left. And maybe that's why Danny Morris went to the opposite side. Here's a great example of just drawing a lot of attention or defenders to the ball side, moving it quickly, and getting an isolated guy off of a recovery. You know, so here, look at all the attention they drew. Now they have kind of a 2-on-2 over here on this side, on the help side, and if they slide adjacent, you know, you got some guy turning the corner. But Duke does a great job of manipulating their defense through just some simple things.
You know, in the MLL, coaching last year in the MLL, so often there would be nobody on the crease, and you just had to get so good at being able to, like, be hard to beat, and then you know, go if you got to go, but, you know, double if you can double, but, like, really try to hold up, because in the MLL, this happens all the time, that you've got this dodging scenario where there is no crease, and it's, you know, they do kind of try to slide out of it, but, you know, in the MLL they won't do that. So, and two guys end up going here. But the other point I wanted to make that's interesting is that a lot of teams make hay with this. Yale did on the Monday after this, is that when you are in the middle of the field, you know, with a wing on either side, it is so hard to guard. It's hard to slide to. You don't know which way they're going because you haven't established, like, you know, a down the alley side really, other than handedness. But when they're in the middle and they're kind of rolling back, do you have nightmares about people on their weaves getting into the middle and rolling back?
Absolutely. It's a point of emphasis every single week, you know, in terms of not allowing rollbacks in different areas of the field. And my nightmare is also coming off of those adjacent midfielders, because it creates so much havoc. Like you said, I would rather stay on those adjacent guys and try to create a crease slide somehow, whether it be through just, you know, designating a guy from close and kind of getting into a zone off ball, or figuring out a way to slide from the crease, because this becomes a nightmare. And Duke is so good at shooting off of these drift dodging scenarios. The other thing you'll notice for our high school coaches that Duke, they may be the most fundamental team in the country. They may have the most or the most consistent traditional field fundamentals of any team. They do such a great job of developing that. All of these guys have their sticks on their ear. All of them have their heads up. They communicate very well as soon as the double team comes, and they get the ball in and out of their stick very quickly. You don't see a lot of sidearm passing or anything flashy. It doesn't take that to be successful. So I always admire
I agree. It's so cool though, because while they're so fundamental, they're also so cutting edge. I mean, like, they do so many different. They have a variety of. If you ever listen to, you know, Duke guys talk about the way they redodge and the things they're looking for. I just remember watching over the years. Like, remember all of a sudden, like week to week, like all of a sudden Trapuka has like got a new move in his repertoire of redodges, and you're like, oh my gosh, these guys are like evolving as dodgers and players and pass fakes. I mean, this dodge right here off the windup. You know, this is an Ethan Walker move right here. Wind up, hitch, swim. You know, I mean, you know, the only thing he could have done better is probably get it right back to his right hand and bury that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think they do a phenomenal job of developing their midfielders and taking guys as D middies and turning them into offensive midfielders. guys like Lawson, guys like Trapuka, guys like Turi. Not to say they were all D-middies or anything like that, but they really make them earn their stripes and understand the fundamentals before they put them on offense, which I think is why you see such a high standard. Guys have to earn that. Just a great job, opportunistic here, of recognizing a short stick matchup, taking them to the house. They don't really have anything set up above right now. They're kind of in a 4 across, and they slide a little bit late. But Duke does a good job of getting to the island, turning the corner, and Danny Morris makes a nice save. Duke changes levels. They go high to low, but Danny Morris does a great job on the pipes of just sitting there, staying big, and getting hit with it.
I'm a really big believer in working on your come around shooting. And in our last video session, we talked about this also, but there's a lot of chances in this game and in the championship game where guys didn't, you look at some of the low angle shooters in pro lacrosse, especially, and guys like us, the Stanwick brothers were great at this, but the reason why this save is able to happen is it's kind of like a high lift and a low throw, and he's staring his shot down. And, what Kevin Rice does that's so cool on these low angle shots, and what Stanwick would do, is they would fake low right about now, and then they would lift high right there. That shot would have already been a low high lift, and then the goalie is like committing to the second fake, and working on that stuff is really critical. And it happens so often in the big little games that you're coming around and you're getting this shot, and this is a great shot that you just got to bury. And so anyways, I just want to make that point. We're going to splice some looks into our videos when we have these conversations. But do you ever work on that stuff, Chris?
Absolutely. I remember specifically, in the early Danowski years, watching the way Duke warms up. And one thing they always do is turn in the corner shooting. They just trace the crease, and they do, tons of repetitions of turning the corner, increasing your angle, faking and finishing, just the simple little things. It is imperative. So yeah, we try to work on that. We try to work on all types of shooting, especially since we have a lot of Canadians who play kind of above the cage, if you will. Not a lot of guys that attack from below goal line. So we have to work on that a lot.
This is a scenario that's typical for high school lacrosse, where you got a midi that wants his right hand. Now, Bubba Fairman's got a good left, but they're doing. Looks like they're doing a pretty concerted effort to make him go to the middle here, I think.
Absolutely. So they want to try to make contact and get to a trail position. You see that crease defenseman hedging. But like you said earlier, one thing that they didn't do a great job of is they allow Bubba to kind of dictate his direction and where he wants to go. So now that he's in the most threatening part of the field into the middle, this was all designed to set up his right hand, to get this number 13 to overcommit, roll back to his right, either have a throwback for a shot or attack. And if Duke gets baited on that back of the head, as soon as they see back of the head, well, then they have a throwdown to that left-hander. So they do a really good job, again, of manipulating Duke's defense, attacking a vulnerable short stick with one of their best players, and then eventually, getting the ball to number 1. That's just a great little roll-off pick right there. Even a big-to-big can be really confusing for defensemen of all levels, especially if they're trying to maintain matchups. If that's something you see on film, they may not switch this, and you may have a guy that can come around and turn the corner. Now, if they do, this particular case, there wasn't really any contact, so Duke did a great job of maintaining and not just switching to switch, because that could have created a throwback. But it's something that picks and repicks are things that any defense struggles with. And I encourage any high school coach to, incorporate that into your offense. Goal line picking and picking from rolling off the crease is absolutely deadly.
It is. It's so hard because, you want to keep consistent picking rules, but you can't exactly, because when it's a goal line pick and they actually get picked, you got to jump it. Right? You can't just easily switch it. And when it's long versus short to long to short, and then you're behind the net and you got a way to do it out front. And it is, it's hard. You see every single year there's goal line picks that are throwing really well coached teams off. And you're right. I mean, if this picker adjusts his pick and sets it properly, these guys, he might have been ready to go, but it looks like he might have gotten run through his top hand there too.
Yeah, and I think the way that they get into it kind of on the fly, as opposed to making it so telegraphed. It doesn't allow Duke to set up in any type of, zone defense above or any type of scheme. And they have an opportunity there with a cutter to the ball, but they weren't able to kind of get it out of their stick. They're a little bit late on the cut, it looks like. But the thought process being, with the confusion on the pick, they may be able to get something off ball with some good cutting. So
this is a sweet little two-man play, though, where they're coming in front. I think they communicated this. They both knew it was coming, don't you think?
Oh, the offensive guys?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Here's an opportunity for faking, too, because even though this pick didn't result in, something easy, at the end of the day, look where he is. You know what I mean? If this is John Grant Jr., he's pumping a pass up the field right now, and then he's faking passes behind the back and are faking shots, and his hands are getting free. I think one of the most underused fakes in the game is your behind the back fake when you're posting guys up. Junior does it every time. And the interesting thing about behind the back fakes is it makes the defender natural. It's a hesitation, first of all. And second of all, it kind of makes the defender guard the wrong side of you because they think if something's coming, and then all of a sudden you can shoot it off ball side. How good was Connor Fields at that?
Oh my God, he was incredible. He's one of the best faking attackmen I've ever seen. He doesn't even need to use his offhand most of the time. He has a great offhand, but he doesn't need to use it because he can essentially do it through faking and just having great, field awareness.
Honestly, Tahoka and him. I mean, I say it all the time. I think the difference between good and great has to do with faking and physical. And it's the biggest opportunity that most people have. Even this little subtlety right here. What is 66 doing?
Agreed.
Faking that he's going to the rack, and then bang, he zips it over from his little double threat position and causes a more difficult approach. You know what I mean? And the defense isn't quite as ready. And then all of a sudden, they slide. They slide incorrectly.
That's exactly right. And that's
that one. And I don't think this would have happened had 66 not made it look like he was going to attack and then all of a sudden cause those guys to scramble as much. They would have had just that extra second to think about it.
I agree. And it's a very simple offense. You're running kind of a 23 look, and all that Duke did was just, have a little deception to maybe confuse your slides and recoveries, which they did a masterful job of. And with a single crease set like they have, and they bring another guy in at the last second, there's a lot of space. There's a lot of space that's created for passes, and it lengthens your recoveries and slides. And so they take advantage of it with just good ball movement, keeping their head up, moving the ball twice, getting it to the help side, and getting a dunk out of it. And that little deception, as you said, Jamie, is really what set up this entire play. I think that's to show you how calculated that Duke is.
And then Duke, works on the up the hashes shooting, and they're about as good at it as anybody as far as, hammering jump shots coming up the hashes, aren't they?
I agree with you, Jamie, and I also think number 27 here, I think that's Brad Smith. I think he does a great job of holding the ball in his stick, a half second with a little hitch before he throws the one more. He draws that guy upfield rather than just, stepping in and shooting it like you saw 66 earlier. So, yeah, I think that was a great play.
All around.
So, again, here we have Maryland kind of during early offense, just, figuring out what they want to run, setting everybody up. You have Connor Fields, or not Connor Fields, but number one for Maryland, up high as an attackman, kind of bringing his close defenseman out to space where he may not be as comfortable, putting a close guy in more of a midfielder role. Now it looks like they're going into a big little with a guy that's being shut, Bernhardt, bringing him to use him as a picker. That creates a little bit of confusion. They don't slide in a hurry there and end up getting a pretty high percentage shot off of, as you'll see.
They're overplaying. They're trying, they don't want to switch this thing. They're playing the ball so hard and pushing so hard that they're baiting these guys into shooting the shot. And, another example of the guy doesn't fake at all. When you get a step like this, it's kind of counterintuitive, but the first thing you want to do is start faking and hesitating because you're going to buy yourself more time. You fake passes up the field right now, maybe give a little look back fake, right there, slowing everybody down. And then all of a sudden you can do that Stanwyck low high wind up on the upfield, up the hashes type of shot. And, it's a goal. So, Duke played it.
We agreed. I think getting back to what we talked about initially, Jamie, of preparing for opponents, and when you're scouting these teams, is to recognize, is this guy a good shooter from below goal line? Is he a good passer from below goal line? Is he a guy that we need to slide quickly to? Number two for Duke right there could have blown him up. He could have absolutely blown him up and slid if he felt like he was a threat, but clearly they did their homework and they felt like he wasn't a threat. And they end up stealing a possession back, which is a great play.
What's your take on individual defense here with the way, give us a little rundown on your opinion of, his lead poke and the way he goes to his V-hold and stuff like that. Are you a believer? How do you teach, when you're having someone run at you at X?
Okay, so a couple things. First of all, this is probing 101 during early offense. They have number 6 still on the field, Duke, for Duke, and that's one of their top D middies, and so Maryland is being a little more conservative with their ball pressure in early offense. They're staying a little bit more compact, which is understandable. So 13 he's in a pretty vulnerable position. One, because he's not really taking away any side of the field. He has his stick out front. He has a good helmet level and a good base, but he's not really dictating at, kind of a hinge point on the field what he wants to take away. My particular view is, in this scenario, is to same thing, play some conservative pressure, but make him go to his offhand or sit on his strong hand a little bit more. And then that will allow me to play with more of a cross check and less of, trying to go to a V-hold or anything like that. I like to drive guys upfield. I'm not a big V-hold guy if we can avoid it, because I don't like to slide to my poles typically, unless it's a specific matchup. But I think you have to protect the pipes no matter if it's a V-hold or a cross check. You have to keep offensive players outside of those hash marks or away from the pipes, because people are so good at up the hash shooting these days, or almost shooting it while they're below goal line by wrapping their stick around or shooting it backhand. So he's got to make contact with his dodger below goal line. That's first and foremost.
So you're saying you'd like to have seen him move laterally here and
Yes.
give him a jack him and then try to catch him with a V-hold if you have to.
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah. He's got to widen him out a little bit because he goes to V-hold. Now he's in the vulnerable position. If he attacks that top hand, he can inside roll this guy. And if he sees the slide coming, kick it through X and create offense out of it. So I don't like to create offense on the pipes. I want to be more physical and not slide if possible.
I love the terminology of a good base and a good helmet level. It's just so important.
It absolutely is. To have that power, especially with a guy getting a full run at you, you've got to find, your center of gravity, and your legs and your core are really where your power come from, not that heavy-handed cross check for our close guys. So
that's a pretty good base and helmet level right there.
Fantastic. You can see the adjustment as this game has gone on. Their D-middies, Maryland has played with a little bit more of a lower base, and they've pressed out a little bit more to try to get that point of contact. Still not doing a great job of getting their hands on the Dodger, but they're getting them to the area of the field where they want to put them.
Let me ask you a question, Chris. Are you someone who backs off, or do you someone who move laterally? Like, how do you get that point of contact? It seems to me like it's really hard to get a chunk of somebody and be backpedaling at the same time.
I agree with you. I like to be more consistent with where we pick guys up. I either crowd them when they're out in space, or I'll just sit back and let them come to me and just say, hey, we may have to slide a little bit quicker because we're not getting our hands on quite as early. But I do agree that it's tough to really, like a D-back in football, to kind of backpedal out in space when a guy's at a full sprint and get your hands on him. So I like to wait in a certain area or press out completely. That halfway in between stuff is where guys get confused. Here, they're a little bit confused on the recovery. They threw back, and then they end up trying to recover to the throwback guy. So they got Maryland spinning a little bit right now. They're in a two-man crease set, hedging from the ball side crease, filling top down. And they're just kind of probing, just moving the ball, trying to find a short stick matchup. They haven't found that matchup yet, so they go to a picking game on a roll-off. Maryland did a good job on defense by kind of killing time, and then that allowed them to get a timer on. Now Gooderding's on a short stick, so he's in a little bit of a double threat there for a minute, trying to see who's going to slide. As they slide adjacent there to that short stick, he ends up creating some offense. So Levin's ball watching. He steps away. He's trying to bait him. All right, so they see back.
What did Gooderding do here? Could you tell? It looks like he did a hard face dodge over and back to get a stop sign. It's kind of hard to see. Yeah,
it is kind of hard to see. I think he does a little jab step, two hands to one hand. As soon as they see back of the helmet, 11 goes, comes off the adjacent. And Duke is great step down, overhand shooting. They're in triple threat position, ready to receive and get it out quickly before the goalie's ready. Bang. One step and it's out of his stick.
It's a killer when its timer's on and you give him the goal, huh?
Absolutely. Now you see Maryland a little more aggressive here in early offense. They're pressing out a little bit more, probably because that's Gooderding. They just want to deny him the ball. So short stick matchup, looks like they're going to go to a single invert or a big little. Here comes the big little. They end up getting a midfielder with a pole on him, Brad Smith, I believe. And this could all be smoke and mirrors just to drag him out of position. We don't really know yet. But either way, they're taking their time. They're setting up, going a little bit of a kind of a razor pick. Maryland's pressing that roll off, not allow the short stick to get it. He B-cuts a little bit and gets it. Short stick matchup, goes for the skip. Good hard overhand shot. Not a great angle, not particularly high percentage, but either way, with a short stick matchup, that allows you to feed below goal line. You don't have to be a scorer, but it can create some easy feeding opportunities.
Talk a little bit about the picking angle here and what made this so difficult for Maryland in the way they were playing it.
That's a great point. Well, this is kind of what we call almost like a tripper pick, where you put the defenseman in a position where if he tries to press over the pick, he might get chipped, and if they don't switch, he's going to be in a trail position where 27 can get to the island. If he tries to go under this, then he's got to navigate the back of the cage, which he does, but he doesn't have great footwork. Instead of kind of pushing off with the trail leg, he pushes off with the wrong leg and ends up getting his feet tangled. So that pick was just masterful. And they slid early, which prevented, him from getting a hands-free shot. But that positioning of the pick right at that tangent, that 45-degree tangent of the cage, is really tough to navigate.
It is. And in our micro training for coaches, and we'll insert this in, but we talk about setting picks when people are going to go under. It just forces them to run in a crooked line to get there. And that's like at the end of the day, and like Chris said, if they overplay as you're coming in, then, the picker would step up a little bit. Maybe you use a little stop and go and you can get chipped. And so, it brings me to the point of, for all coaches that are working on this on both sides of the ball, if you want to teach this on offense, you have to tell your defenders you're not allowed to switch and you have to go under the pick. If you want to work on this scenario, script it. And then all of a sudden you'll learn how to adjust your pick and set it perfectly so that this defender has to navigate with an S sort of turn, and or say, all right, you have to get through it. No matter what, you have to get through it. And now this guy will learn how to set his man up with a stop and go, and this guy will adjust his pick that way. Or if you want to work on your slips, say, switch everything. And so do you guys do that, Chris? Do you guys script the D to work on that stuff?
Absolutely. We'll do things like, chipping and recovering. In this particular case, if we want to maintain the matchup and buy 41 some more time, then that, 27 is a little bit far out to chip, but what he could do is even take a step or a jab step out to make 27 step off his line a little bit. And that would allow 41 to get underneath and into that spot. But because he doesn't even really show, it becomes a foot race, and 41 has the bad angle here. So yeah, we do script if we're switching picks or if we're maintaining matchups. And if we want to maintain matchups, how can we do that? Well, it could be chipping and recovering. It could be manipulating the picker by staying on his back hip and almost driving him into his own man. But yeah, we want to dictate. We don't want to allow them to dictate.
So just to make sure everyone's clear, chipping and recovering is this shorty is going to step out and try to get a chip and make him like take a little bit of a slower, wider angle to buy a little bit of time for this guy to navigate his longer path.
That's correct.
Same idea on this finish here, by the way. This guy, the double fake finish coming from behind, would have been effective. Remember how good Kevin Rice was at that, Chris?
Oh my God. Rice and Donahue, those guys are two of the slickest attackmen I've ever had to coach against. Incredible, both of those guys.
It's amazing how we've taken about 40 minutes and gone through one quarter. Don't worry, we won't have time to go through the whole game, but this has been incredible. Maybe we could do it for another 10, 20 minutes or something like that.
Absolutely. That'd be great.
Yep.
So here you have a little substitution game picking. So Duke is trying to create some separation for a midi, or really just create some separation for that long stick midi to get to the midline and create a 6-on-5 scenario. So they throw down and they wait to see who's coming out of the midfield if they have a guy cutting to the cage, which they don't. But again, it makes the defense work. It makes them communicate. It tires them out. And it's just another thing they have to prepare for on a weekly basis. The key, though, is setting, set correct picks. You can't have moving picks and have easy turnovers because you're setting moving picks when you're really just trying to create a little minute advantage. Back to a double crease set. They're looking for almost looks like a pair set where they're kind of popping the crease behind the dodge. They isolate two short sticks on the same side of the field, which allows Guderding to potentially get a quick slide and a tough approach here from 24. They slide early, slide quickly, makes 24 rotate. Guderding can now attack a guy that's flying out at him. And he does a great job of pinning his hands and his body with a slight little kind of a hitch move, if you will, and he slices to the net.
So putting your best attackman in a midfield pop spot is what they're doing, and forcing that, baiting him into the slide. Well, he had a shorty on there anyway, so.
Exactly.
And then that, yeah, this is a classic Kevin Rice hesitation move. I call it a stick foot hesitation, Chris. And this is where right on that foot right there, he's
Yeah.
subtly stopping and going. It's kind of like a hitch. It is a lot like a hitch.
So the other thing, if you look at the adjustments that have gone on throughout the game, let's move back a little bit and say, okay, well now Nakai, number 15, he was beating our short sticks, but we're going to press out, we're going to get a better point of contact, and we're going to slide early. So Duke takes advantage of that early slide. They pop their attackman, like you said, all right, and that really is what created the whole scenario. So they countered the adjustments that Maryland made in that case. And if you notice how Nakai threw the ball, that's what dictated Maryland's recovery. Nakai rolled away from pressure. So if he would have done a pull pass, you might have seen 42 from the crease rotate up to the throwback. But because they did a rollaway dodge, you see 24 rotate all the way across because they bought him some time. So that's how they recovered in that case.
Interesting. Kid's pretty quick, eh?
He's really quick. He's going to be a superstar. Out of Dallas, Texas, there's good lacrosse everywhere these days. This kid is a top recruit in the country out of Dallas, and he's playing at a high level. Now, here's where we probably want to pause it for a second. Here you have a scenario again of, a guy that's been getting the short stick, and he's really quick, and we got to think, hey, he's really wide. Do I want to create a one-on-one matchup where I'm not even hedging or sliding to that? Or do I want to dictate where he runs? So in my opinion, maybe in this case, 23 could force 15 to his right hand. He may get his right, like upfield. That would at least, allow us to slide to him. That underneath dodge can be really tough to defend when you're so far out away from the cage. 23 just gave him way too straight of a line to the pipe. And when they don't have any type of defense set up to slide, it creates an easy goal. So 23's either got to force him upfield or he's got to trail him to X and not let him get underneath. But Maryland doesn't do a great job of recognizing the matchup and sliding to a bad matchup.
They just got the wrong on-ball positioning for the kind of slide defense they're playing, basically.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you think about this little transitional situation here?
Yeah, I don't see the whole lead up, but I think that Maryland midfielder in the middle of the cage, 22, probably doesn't want to focus as much on trying to ride upfield and stop the ball there. I don't know if this is out of a ride maybe, but in creating that upfield slide, he creates even more of an uneven scenario, and Duke does a great job of just drawing and throwing the one-mores until they found an easy high percentage shot. 22 wants to focus on getting into the paint or getting into the box and getting into a rotation so that we could stop the ball.
Yeah, usually you want to slow play it, not speed play it.
Agreed. So that really got them nothing. Duke just kept downhill, and that created, I guess, a 4-on-3 that you practice every day and an easy high percentage one-on-one.
Duke taking away that radiality on Fairman again.
They really are. They really are.
So what do you do if let's put that back. I'm sorry, I put it too far. If you're, it's going to happen a lot in high school. It happens in college. What do you tell middies? Because listen, you got going to your left here isn't a great option because it's a bit of a high offense. Anytime you're in these umbrella sets or whatever, everyone's high. You got a high crease. You got three guys out top. If you force middle, and there's no adjustment, you're just running into traffic. So what are some of the counters you would say to do to when you're being forced middle on your high 45-degree high wing dodges, and particularly in an umbrella type of set?
I think there's there's two easy answers. There's a lot of different adjustments you can make depending on what your off-ball personnel is. And this, for starters, if someone wants to really overload themselves to one side of the field because of a shut, if you have a good supporting cast and you can move that ball quickly to the help side, they've created some deception for you. They've created some space on the help side for a two-pass look and a go. If you don't, and you're a high school team with limited talent and you're working, this is your best player, the first thing I would do is say, hey, you know what? See if we can maybe S-dodge back underneath for our strength. If he wants to play me this wide, I still want to dodge back underneath and force them to slide to me. If they don't slide, then I have an easy goal. If they do, then I've created the offense that I've wanted. Now we have an advantage. The other thing you could do is say, you know what, if you want to give me my right hand, or say you want to, or if you want to sit on it, I'll go even wider, and I can roll a pick off to that on-ball defender and set a pick for him and just create a rollback where I can sweep to my strong hand. You know what I'm saying? Or I can sweep to the middle of the field. So he can go to his offhand even wider, and then
this way, you mean?
Yeah, and then a pick can come from the crease, or from the adjacent, and he can get back to maybe a matchup or get to an area of the field where he can dictate what hand he takes.
Yeah. And the other thing I think you can do is just take it low. You know, like one of the biggest problems when you're running an umbrella or a cuse or any of these 3-out type of offenses and you're dodging from high, you got to get the ball low. And the reason why this can work is if you just take what they give you, then it's perfect for the defense. But if they wouldn't do that if you were down here, right? They wouldn't feel great about you going into the middle, you know, where you can shoot the ball from inside 10 yards. And so part of that is just taking the ball low as well.
Absolutely. And I think taking the ball low, setting picks for the on-ball defender, especially if it's a team that maintains matchups or wants to maintain a shut, or if they're not used to shutting and they're just doing it for one game, they're going to make mistakes. So making him a picker or setting picks for him will create some headaches for them. You know, that's the danger with trying to throw some junk or throwing things like that at people, is if you're not used to doing them, your comfort level of your defense goes down and your consistency goes down. So you're running the risk of giving up easy goals. Steve Fairman does a nice job of rolling back to his strength. As soon as he recognizes the slide comes, they're kind of squaring him up. He sees it, he rolls back, all right? But he doesn't really take advantage of it, so he just moves it, and they keep the ball hot.
Kelly probably wants this one back. Gets a nice little switch. How do they get that switch? They set a nice pick right in the middle of the field and make it really, really hard to get through that. He's such a good shooter.
So this scenario is exactly what I was talking about. If you rewind it to the beginning, the Duke defender is sitting on his right hand. He's overplaying his right hand, even though he has a stick out. He's sitting on his right. So what he does is he takes that offhand and he goes to his strong hand, and then the pick comes for him, which creates a switch, and then he can readjust and almost like a redodge, get back to his strength this way. And that's what I meant with Bubba, is create a scenario where you initially go maybe where you want him to, but you can get back to your strength.
You know, Kelly usually does this a little bit better, but he didn't use many moves here. That, you know, he just kind of like rolled back and looked for his shot. You know, in a lot of the other clips that I've watched of him during the course of the year, you know, he would be hesitating and rockering a couple times on his way down, which would get him a better step to the middle. And then he'd hitch a couple times coming top side, or he'd be in his double threat, because he's almost perfectly in shooting range. And if he would have like hitched once and then come back and been here instead of here, you know, he probably could have just pulled the trigger with hands free, but he actually just rushed his play a little bit. I saw him make, don't you think, kind of let them off the hook.
He could have drawn a little more contact as well and just taken that guy off of his, you know, and created, he's trying to kind of run around him. Yeah. Instead of trying to lower his shoulder, get him on his heels a little bit and then roll back. And he made it easy on the defender, and then they could get a slide and a contest. I mean, for a guy like him, that's still a pretty high percentage shot, but he can do better than that.
Yeah. It's just amazing how much, you know, how good these players are.
Oh my God.
Yet how much there is to work on. I was watching Ben Reeves, you know, and, you know, as great as he is in the championship game, I mean, you know, that kid is going to get so much better if he keeps playing, because he doesn't even fake that much. He's like already almost unguardable.
I agree. There's that roll-off pick. You know, teams just made the easy switch. You know, it's something where they roll it off the backside, maybe where Six isn't used to putting these scenarios with Bubba, and they end up getting a short stick on Bernhardt, looks like here, which is bad news, because he's a really good feeder. So now he can survey the defense, he can take his time, he can dodge, he can score himself, and he just does a nice little stop and go move here. Notice
how Bubba, he does a great job setting this pick and wastes no time to get the heck out of there and make himself
Great point.
Follow him to the backside.
That's crucial in the picking game for our high school coaches when teaching your guys is the picking and then the separation piece. As soon as that pick happens, you have got to work to separate almost 5 yards away and 5 yards deep so that they can't make an easy switchback or an easy slide.
Say that again, Chris.
So as soon as he uses that pick and the switch occurs, number 2 wants to bounce away almost 5 and 5 away at a minimum to keep his guy occupied and not allow him to re-slide or to switch back. He does a great job, like you said, Jamie, just wasting no time in separating.
Also, he turns himself into a little mirror, and, you know, with a feeder like Bernhardt, these guys are probably like, you can't slide off the mirror.
Exactly.
It's like a dunk, and we'd much rather just deal with Bernhardt maybe scoring than, you know, and at least having to, like, work for it.
You hit the nail on the head. A lot of teams will come off of that clear through guy, and they set this up to come off of the mirror guy so they could easily have a one-on-one, but they think, hey, you know what? We're just going to drive Bernhardt upfield and make him shoot it with his left hand. Number 6 does not do a great job of driving upfield, and Bernhardt just takes advantage of it.
Bernhardt makes it so effortless looking the way he puts on the brakes, doesn't he?
He absolutely does, and he's not a guy that's afraid of contact or turning the corner, so you have to honor him. Unfortunately, he's just one of those guys that if he's got a short stick on him, you've got to get a pole on him as much as you can and slow him down because he's just so multidimensional.
It's just over.
It's game over.
So let's look at this little play right here. First of all, how would you characterize this offense, Chris?
I'd just say it's probably a 1-4-1. You know, a 2-man crease there. It's a little bit of an overload. You know, it's a little bit over the crease. It's kind of shaded to the far side of the field. The wing on the backside is a little high. So it doesn't look as like a clean 1-4-1, but it really is. And it just creates a lot of space for 23. So if you're scouting them and you say, hey, does Duke slide off the high guy or the low guy? In this particular case, when 23 gets to the middle, they're going to come off of Connor Kelly. No, they just try to hedge and recover. So if 23 bears down, you know, he might be able to get a little separation and get a shot off.
Well, it would have helped if Connor Kelly had slipped this thing earlier, or as Grundy said in his pairs offense talk, because this is a pairs concept right here on the ball side. And if he would have bailed, I think that's what Grundy calls it. But when you bail like this, and if he slips out of there, his man would have followed him. And you can see that the angle that the Duke player is at, combined with an earlier slip or bailout, would have given him a lane right into the center of the defense.
Absolutely. Duke's really athletic. They do a great job of hedging and recovering here. They don't slide off the incorrect guy. They recognize the matchups. They feel good about 23 going to that particular spot. And they got the adjacents covered, so there's no easy adjacent throw-aheads and shots. So they do a pretty good job here. They kind of square up in the alley. It's a little bit of a soft point of contact, but they feel good about, where they're at.
There's so many interesting things in this play. So first of all, watch Bernhardt behind the net and how he's taking his man completely out of the play by hanging his guy up constantly. Now, DU's been great about doing this for a lot of years, and Bernhardt is doing this. And what he's doing is he's making his man, you know, if his man wants to help on this side, he's going to the backside, and they do not want to put themselves in that situation where he's getting the ball easily. So now they've eliminated that guy. Now, I know they were kind of pressing anyway, so maybe it was going to be eliminated, but the idea of hanging your guy up is huge. How much do you guys think about doing that within your offense, or worry about it when you're going against it?
We don't have a Jared Bernhardt on our team right now, so we haven't had to deal with it a whole lot, like anyone shutting off our ex-attackman. So we haven't had to deal with it, but yeah, we definitely want to manipulate those low pipe defensemen and keep their head on a swivel so they can't be in help position, for anything above the cage, whether it be filling to the crease or filling to an adjacent like emergency slide. If you occupy them, you screen the goalie. You also take them out of the rotation. If you get the ball back to them, you might have a little hang-up scenario too. So we don't really focus a lot on it, but it's something to be aware of, certainly.
I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of attackmen to learn how to – I mean, I kind of look at it as a former attackman and offensive coach. I would I would try to get my ex guy to think about hanging his man up. I don't, whether he was a good player or not, I don't really care. I want you literally always manipulating your guy so he can't help, and B, you can maybe put him in a tough approach situation, and C, you might even have your hands free to be able to feed it. Again, I look at the University of Denver, the way they hang guys up, regardless of who it is, you're always seeing that hang up situation where they're tight, catching it in tough situations. So it's pretty, there's too much good stuff to work on to do it all, but it's just a good the last thing I want to say is that one of the things that this offense makes me think of is with a two-man side here, even though it's a 1-4, and I agree with you, it's almost like a box type of offense where you've got a two-man look here and a three-man look here. And I saw a lot of that this year where there was an element of pairs kind of offense on this side, but they were, instead of having two guys low on the pipes and two guys on the backside, they were occupying offensively with three on the backside, really giving them this really great opportunity to do that type of hang up on the backside. So have you seen much of that this year, or am I just sort of?
No, you're exactly correct. I saw it out of a couple teams this year. And it's tough, especially if, in this particular case, they're going 5-on-5, they're going 5-on-5. The guy in the play, he's out of the play essentially. So you're just creating a lot of confusion, and it's hard for short sticks and rope guys to understand who's the slider. And right there, that's exactly what it does. I mean, one guy has his back to number 44, I believe, here for Duke, 55, has his back turned to the ball. He doesn't really know where the ball is. He's trying to press his guy, and the two low guys don't know if they're staying with their man or if they're staying home. But both of their off-ball positions, their chests are facing the ball. They're kind of ball watching, and Maryland does a great job of just slipping behind their head and exchanging. And it's really tough to cover, because if you try to stay with your man, then it's hard to organize a slide. If you try to go zone, then they can just slip behind the zone. So it creates a lot of space, and that's what you create when you try to shut one guy.
Yale seemed to do a little bit of that in the championship game too.
Yeah, they did.
Because 44 would be inside. It was like a pairs offense with 44 in there.
And as soon as you leave him, all he needs he needs no space, really. You throw it right into him for an easy dunk. Same thing. So they may have pressed out a little bit on Bubba, but they were sitting on his right. So he had to work a little bit harder, and he got really wide out of this dodge. He didn't get an easy look, but he did a good job of sliding and rolling back. And that guy on him.
One of the moves I really like to teach that's a fundamental. So when I work on dodging on what I call the wrong side of the field. So if you're a righty and you're on this side, I would call that the wrong side. I call this your natural side. And essentially what I work on is S dodge, like we talked about before. So if they take it away, you can do that. I like what I like to do also is dodge and double rollback, to be able to like roll back to the middle and then roll back again, because that double move gives you the angle that you want to have. And then obviously you can just take it wide and belly out and turn the corner low. And those would be for me, the three solutions when they're trying to take away your righty alley when you're a right-handed player on the wrong side of the field.
I agree. There's a nice little split to a roll. Duke, that's another thing that Duke does a very good job of, and clearly Maryland does too, is just you have so much space to work with here. Don't have a one-track mind. Drag that guy to a spot, make a couple of changes of direction, change of speed and change of direction. That's what dodging is. So he does a nice job there. Bubba ends up getting his right hand against a short stick, single invert, and they haven't had a chance to attack. They haven't had a chance to get into a invert zone.
Well, Chris, I don't want to take up I've taken up an hour and a half of your time already, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Any chance we can get you back on one of these calls someday?
Absolutely. I really enjoy this stuff. So I apologize for being so wordy and taking so long, but this is a lot of fun.
It was fantastic, man. I think everyone's going to love it. I look forward to seeing you the next time. Don't know when that'll be. Like I said, we already talked that you're not going to be making it up to Ontario this summer, but if you do want to come watch a player play, we can come go out and I'll show you beautiful St. Catharines, Ontario.
That'd be awesome. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully I'll see you in the near future.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Thanks, man. Have a great day.
You too. See ya.
Yeah.